Okay, so it looks like Trump has sued an Iowa pollster, you guys, and this is right on the heels of him winning a $15 million settlement from ABC and George Stephanopoulos for defamation, right? And I wonder whether we're in for tit for tat lawfare and criticize me at your own peril, era for the next 4 years. What do you think? I'm guessing that this lawsuit against the pollster in Iowa and the Des Moines Register is sort of classic Trump. It's like a classic Trump move, a Trump strategy where he blends grievances with, you know, getting ratings and attention and with intimidation. It's like a 3-for-1 trifecta to sort of keep his enemies and critics in line. I don't think this lawsuit, and I could be wrong, but I don't think it's about winning in court because I don't think it's really winnable. I think it's about sending a message to all media organizations in the United States and perhaps even around the world, to pollsters and definitely to critics, those in established corporate media and those on social media, to watch what they say about him, or he's going to, take them to, what do you call it, where you take somebody to the, you clean them up. You I don't remember the expression in English. Oh my God, where you just take them for every dime that they have. Um, Thank God I'm judgment proof. I don't have anything, you guys. I have nothing at all. I don't even have food sometimes. But that's the beauty about my life, is that, I can make it look like $1 million when I literally don't have food. So I'm judgment proof. But for the rest of you guys out there, established media, people with deep pockets, you're going to have to be very careful about, the next 4 years. Now, what is going through this man's mind at this time? Because I was not for the lawfare waged against Trump when he left office. I really wasn't. But I'm also not for the lawfare that I think he's going to wage, which is one of the reasons, to be honest with you, that I was terrified of him becoming president again, because I just saw it as 4 years of just crazy lawfare, like with none stopping. And he's not even in office yet. Once he gets in office and his attorney general and his other attorneys get to work, it's going to be hell to pay. I don't even see anyone on the Democratic sort of like leadership and figureheads who will be safe. You know, now what's going through his mind? I think for one thing, vindication, right? He thrives on disproving his detractors. And I think despite his electoral victory, he probably feels that the polls undermined his narrative of overwhelming public support, because he did win the popular vote, but at the same time, it wasn't I'm sorry, it wasn't overwhelming. And so he wants to be vindicated and he wants to look powerful in the eyes of his supporters. I mean, and they love this. They thrive on this because that's what they love about him, is that he's a fighter and he doesn't take crap. And I like that about him too. Don't get me wrong. It's just I don't really want to deal with 4 years of lawfare. But yeah. So what else might be going through his mind? Deterrence, right? By targeting pollsters and media outlets. I mean, they're all on their knees begging for pardon, all of them. Trump could be trying to discourage unfavorable or critical coverage in the next 4 years, right? And he's bringing them all to Mar-a-Lago, and he's like laying down the law. I mean, and not just with the media, even with global leaders like Justin Trudeau, who himself is in deep, deep cow manure with the Canadian people who are asking for him to step down because they feel like he's not pushing back enough against Trump and these tariffs and so on and so forth. So Justin could be out of office. I think he's been in office for at least 10 years. He was in office when Obama was president, right? So you're going back a while. So he could be fired by the Canadian people because they feel like, he's not doing enough. But Trump is basically just bringing everybody to Mar-a-Lago, and who he doesn't bring to Mar-a-Lago, he's just suing them into submission, right? What else could be going through his mind? Scapegoating. Even if with his win, Trump does have a penchant for, finding enemies and, blaming them for slights. And he doesn't let up. He doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. He just doesn't. He stays on things like with the thing with Obama and the birth certificate. I mean, I didn't love him when he was doing that. You know what I mean? Because he did that relentlessly. It was like he scapegoated Obama. I didn't love that. And I think that, what he's trying to do with these lawsuits is that he's sort of rallying his base, against this sort of shared advocacy. I mean, advocacy adversary, the fake news media, which, there's a lot of media that's not okay. Look at what the British media is doing to Harry and Meghan on a daily basis. Can you imagine if they were doing that to Trump? Can you imagine if Harry and Meghan had this sort of gravitas that Trump has to get back at these people? I mean, would I say to them, forget the lawfare? No, because I would feel like it was justified because they really have put Harry and Meghan through living hell. Trump would argue they did the same to him, but Trump is a tough guy. He brings them to their knees. But anyway, is it justified? Is this lawsuit justified? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a legal expert. I would say that facially, it kind of looks like a weak case, in the sense that, it's protected speech, right? It's protected by the First Amendment. I mean, incorrect polling is really what he's suing about. But he's not alleging there was any malicious intent or fabrication, at least not to my knowledge so far, but my knowledge is limited. We will wait to hear the facts. But, without, evidence of malice or lies and fabrication, then we don't have fraud, and we certainly don't have election interference, which is what I think is the bottom line charge here, is that these polls were election interference. I mean, the man won handily, right? So I don't know. I think the courts normally, because I mean, if we have normal courts in the next 4 years, are unlikely to agree with Trump on this particular case, right? I think polls, even if they turn out to be wrong or if they turn out to be right or whatever, or comme ci, comme ça, they are First Amendment, you know, cases. It falls in the First Amendment and is protected by the Constitution of the United States, unless Trump is going to tweak the Constitution, which I think he is. Him and Elon are going to gut the Constitution, and we're going to see stuff we've never seen before, right? From a broader ethical perspective, I think it's the lawsuit is difficult to justify because, as I said, it's protected speech. Polls are not meant to be guarantees of anything. I mean, when I heard the polls, I was just like, please, right? Even I know that this is BS. Polls measure opinions at a given time, but not future outcomes, right? So I think the woman's name was Selzer, and her poll was obviously wrong, but it wasn't like intentionally malicious or inherently deceptive, right? So I don't know what this lawsuit is going to prove except to intimidate and to silence and to mute a lot of the press, which, look, I mean, like I said, not all press is good press. I mean, some of this stuff needs to stop. Look at what they do to Harry and Meghan on a daily basis. Also, the fact that there's no real damages that Trump can really point to. I mean, he won Iowa, he won nationally, he won the popular vote. I mean, by a lot. I mean, some people even say by a landslide, right? So his lawsuit would he will not be able to prove actual harm here. And so I don't see what he plans to gain from this. But what can we sort of deduce from this? I mean, for the next 4 years, what does this all foretell for the next 4 years? I think it foretells, unfortunately, more lawfare, right? It signals a continuation, even an escalation, even of Trump's use of law and the legal system and the Department of Justice, etc., escalate to continue like this sort of, you know, silencing of critics, And so we're going to see a lot of lawsuits in the next 4 years against media outlets, whether it's corporate media or social media, against authors, because they like to go write books about people, unauthorized biographies, and so on. And I also think they're going to be lawsuits against dissenters. I mean, he's just going to use the law as a sword and a shield in the next 4 years. I think lawfare will now become a political tool, and it will become a new normal, which is unfortunate. As I said, I was not for the lawfare waged against Trump. And my very first video in this podcast, if you go back to it, I was walking in a park in Paris and I was depressed about it. I'm like, please just stop. Don't do this to this person. But I also feel the same way about lawfare waged by Trump, and using lawfare as a political tool, where he files cases to intimidate people rather than to win. Look, and sometimes I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I live in the real world and I know that people can be terrible. There are people who are terrible. And sometimes they need a bigger, stronger bully to put them back in line because they can come after some people. Myself, I can't fight back. I live in a world where, they take advantage of you all the time and get away with it, And so one of the reasons I like Trump is that even though he and I have very different politics and we live in very different worlds, but this is a man who doesn't take it and he fights back and he wins. And there's a part of me that really admire that about this man. I mean, I wish I could just like stand behind him as he just fights my battles and get these demons away, because there are a lot of very demonic people in the world. That's not to say, it goes both ways. But look, lawfare as a political tool, it just scares me. It's a bad precedent. It doesn't get us to good places as a general rule, as a collective. This man is going to be 80. This is his second, probably last term. Rise above it. It's, yeah, kind of, sort of. On the other hand, I understand. It's like, he wants his revenge. And sometimes I feel this, turn the other cheek thing, this kind of like turn the other cheek diplomacy that is so deeply embedded into my DNA since I was born, doesn't really work, does it? And people just take advantage of you. And you have to make an example of people sometimes. And not everybody can do it, but Trump can. And so there's that, it's very sort of like a push-pull kind of, I don't know. I don't want him to do it. I don't want this lawfare thing. And, maybe in some cases, some of the lawsuits brought about against him were legit, maybe, I don't know. But I wish they hadn't gone there, right? And I wish he wouldn't go there either, just for peace, whatever that even means at this point, in my jaded self, as I become more jaded as I get older. What is peace? Peace is letting them trample all over you and telling them, keep it coming. They pee on your face and you're like, oh, it's water. Now it's not water. You're peeing on my face and I don't appreciate it. And you've got to be able to tell these people and you have to fight back. And that's why I love Trump. Well, not that I love Trump, but I love certain aspects of Trump. You know what I mean? But I don't want this man to be president. I'm terrified. Okay, but what else is on this man's mind? Polarization of the media. So, smaller organizations, like YouTubers are going to self-censor, even though you hear them all talking this badass talk. Oh, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep it coming. Trump is going to take them off of YouTube in 2 seconds. I mean, first of all, he'll probably have Elon Musk buy YouTube, and Elon will just use his algorithms to algorithm all of these people who are anti-Trump off the platform. This is what they do. You see, money talks and BS walks, you guys, and they have money, right? Now, who's next on Trump's hit list now with this lawfare? I mean, look, so many people. You have opposition figures. The Bidens need to watch out, the Obamas, Nancy Pelosi, even Kamala Harris. I mean, we don't know. It's like a lot of people, a lot of the figureheads on the left are in big trouble in the next 4 years. I think political analysts or pundits, whether they are on social media or on conventional media, they are in the line of fire. They need to, if they start questioning his leadership or his popularity, they're going to be sued. Social media platforms, especially some of those big ones on the left, many of them I watch and I like, actually, um have to watch out. Journalists individually, and like George Stephanopoulos and ABC News were sued. I mean, that's what he's going to do. He's going to sue both the journalists and the media behind him. Anybody who tries to investigate his administration critically are going to be on his list. And yeah, other pollsters like Gallup and Queenie Payek, if they release unfavorable polls, which I don't know at this point whether, well, yeah, they could do other polls. I mean, he's going to sue them if they got it wrong. Um, Now, again, does the lawsuit against the Iowa pollster have legal legs? I would say, in my opinion, no, it's unlikely. And it seems like a lot of the experts agree with me on that because polls are opinions, which is protected by the First Amendment on the free speech. There is no actual malice that Trump can show that the pollster knowingly published false results or acted with reckless disregard for the truth, right? And so it's a very high bar that he has to meet, and it's unlikely he can meet it. And most importantly, there are no clear damages. I mean, he was not harmed, right? There's no quantifiable harm for the erroneous poll. So it's going to be hard for him to prove that there was fraud and that he was reputationally damaged because he won the election. Does any of this even matter? Look, for Trump, I think it's really about the optics. This is a man who's all about ratings. He's all about, optics. He doesn't care about the outcome. He just wants to put everyone's heart on fire, which I think he's successfully done so far. And yeah, I mean, even losing the case will bolster his narrative of, the media is fake and it's biased. And all along I was right. And, the election was stolen and yada, yada. Look, what's the takeaway? It's that I don't think this lawsuit is about anything other than Trump saying, if you criticize me, do it at your own peril, right? He's just trying to chill dissent. He doesn't expect to win this lawsuit. He just wants to set everyone's heart on fire. And I think he's done so. For the next 4 years, we're going to see more lawsuits, and they're going to be weapons and swords, right? It's not about him really looking to win. It's just about being dominant. He's a dominant male. He's a dominant male. I don't know if they call him an alpha male because that's a specific thing, but he's definitely a man who needs to be in a dominant position. And if it means suing the bejesus out of these people, bringing lawfare, tit for tat upon them, and rain fire and brimstone upon them to shut them up, that's exactly what he's going to do. Anyway, you guys, that's all for this one. See you in the next one. If you're not yet following this YouTube channel and you like this content, you definitely should consider following. Not should consider, I'm begging you, please. Just hit the subscribe button, okay? It helps us out in the algorithms. It gets us more views because, usually the algorithm ignores us. So do subscribe.